The country's ombudsman, Tijan Amzrel Ja Square, February 2024. 1 year on, the Ombudsman will be speaking on his office, successes and challenges. The Office of the Ombudsman was established by subsection 2 of Section 146 of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone. The office also has the responsibility to investigate administration and injustice of ministries, departments, and agencies of government of Sierra Leone, higher education institutions, and any member of public service or institutions that are publicly funded in Sierra Leone, among other things. Good morning, Mr. Ombudsman. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Were you opportune as well to sleep under electricity this morning?
I will refrain from discussing that for now.
All right. To begin with, paint us a picture. It's a year gone. Paint us a picture of how it has been for you so far.
First of all, I would want to thank God Almighty for the opportunity to serve the people of Sierra Leone. And also I want to thank the President for appointing me. And of course, the Office of the Ombudsman is very important in this country. As you all know, there are Ombudsman's office almost everywhere in the world. And we have specialized ombuds institution, and we have national ombudsman or ombuds institution. In Sierra Leone, we have a national ombudsman institution where we have other ombuds institution collapsed into it. So that's how important the office is. I may also hasten to tell you that the office is a constitutional creation. That is, like the Audit Service Sierra Leone, like other institutions created by the Constitution, the Ombudsman's office is one of those institutions. And the Ombudsman's Act of 1997 speaks more about what we do and what our mandates are. So when I took up office I was appointed in November 2023. I took up office in January 2024. When I took up office in January, of course, there was this interregnum of almost a year where no ombudsman was appointed. So you can imagine the things that are in the office, how staff and administration was going on. So being 1 year in that office has not been an easy ride. It has been, I have experienced both the good, the ugly, and the bad. So you can imagine what it means like. But however, on the whole, it has exposed me to a lot of things about the country, about the people, about working with people, about teamwork, and a lot. But so I will speak on the successes during my...
But before you speak on the successes, the challenges, what would you say were the most pressing challenges, and how were you able to address those challenges?
Well, as with all public offices, one of the major challenges generally is resources. It could be paramountly or primarily, among others, financial resources, human resources, and other material resources. So of course, with all public institutions, we are all crying for money, especially with our allocations that are coming from the Ministry of Finance. And usually, I met the Office of the Ombudsman on a very lean or small budget. But with the help of the Financial Secretary, that is the current, and the Minister of Finance, there has been some effort to increase the budget of the Office of the Ombudsman. But realistically speaking, it has been very minimal, and that has not gone too well for the office. And when I took up office, the office had little or no office equipment, not to talk about staff manpower. So for instance, I took up an office where almost majority of the staff were on study leave and other things. Like I said, administratively, structures were not in place. Things were topsy-turvy in the office, I would tell you that for sure. So I had to battle to ensure that the office is put on a proper footing, which I'm still doing. I have to ensure that things are put in place. I have to go and ensure that I work with the Ministry of Finance, particularly the Minister and then the FS, to ensure that we get our allocations on time, our budget is increased, to ensure that, in fact, as we speak currently, I and the financial secretary are on a project to ensure that the office gets new equipment and the likes. So it was really difficult. Believe me, when I took up office, for the first 3 months, I thought about resigning because it was really difficult. It had a lot of challenges. It still do. We're trying to surmount it and so many things. So that's how the challenges have been there. It has not been an easy challenge. And one thing you should also note about public offices in Sierra Leone, it's not an easy thing to work in. Because when you come into an office as either as an appointee or you perhaps go through the ranks to go up there as the head of the institution, you may meet people who may have built their own citadels, they may have built their own institutions, and sometimes people take offices, government offices, as their private property. So it becomes very difficult, one, to get them to see or buy into your vision as the head of the office. Number two, to get them to work with you collaboratively. Number three, there is usually this norm that when our government will command them, we have our own way of doing things as opposed to private workers. You know, so you have a lot of things to try to cajole them, to try to bring them up to speed, to try to ensure that they see, because as the saying goes, it's all over the place. Sometimes some people will say, we are permanent and pensionable staff, while the political appointees are just coming there. So we are under pressure to deliver, whilst they are now for the next 5-10 years.
Quickly,
you know,
quickly
so
before
they don't try to see how much time you have to deliver on your mandate, to ensure that perhaps if, for example, you have a performance contract, to keep to that performance contract. So all those are the challenges I face in the office.
Quickly before my colleague hop in, just so to maybe viewers and listeners that may be watching and listening that don't really get to understand, some of the roles of the Ombudsman is bridging the gap between, you know, citizens and that of government institutions. Now, what specific case would you speak to, you know, that, you know, represents that particular role?
Oh, I can speak to several cases.
Let's just
I can speak to several cases as to, one, bridging the gap between the government and the people. In fact, that's why the Office of the Ombudsman is very essential. If you would recall, when I took up office in January 2024, I was paying courtesy call to almost all ministries, agencies, and departments of government. And that was very deliberate, because not only are these ministries and agencies and departments of government under our purview, or under the purview of the Ombudsman, but we want to ensure that, one, people, the heads of this institution and their management team, and then the public sector workers, are knowledgeable enough about what the services of the Ombudsman are all about. And number two, they know what we do and how we carry out our function. So in the process, we had to go and meet the heads and leaders of this institution and their management team for them to know that whenever there is a complaint from either members of the public or their own personnel to the Office of the Ombudsman, we are not there to busybody into the administrative activities. We are there to ensure that, one, they deliver on their mandates, two, to ensure that there is cordial working relationship in the office. So by so doing, we were raising public awareness, or we were educating the public about what we do. So back to your question, there have been several instances. So now the statistics.
How do you measure those successes?
Well, we actually have statistics. We should give an annual report to the President's office every year, and like I was saying, for every 5 civil servants or public servants you speak to, at least 2 of them will tell you that they have either encountered the Office of the Ombudsman or its personnel or staff, and or they may have filed a complaint with the Office of the Ombudsman and their issues have been resolved. So I give you the example of the former workers of the Sierra Leone Airport Authority before Suma took over. There were this complaint about many of them whose end of service benefits were not paid. So this matter came up to the Office of the Ombudsman, and we did approach the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, because, you know, airport authorities under the supervision of that ministry. And indeed, government said these people, we do owe them end of service benefits, which was close to about $7 billion or more, $7 million, sorry. And so we approached them, and government said, yeah, we have contacted a private partner, which is Suma. They are going to take over the airport, and they have agreed to pay the liabilities. And indeed, from what we have been gathering, governments have started, if not, they are almost at the final phases of paying the end of service benefits to some of these workers. And some of these workers were also taken on board. Those who were not taken on board, they were paid off and they have gone. So in fact, that's just a minute fraction of some of the things, several complaints or issues we have been addressing. And may I also hasten to bring to your attention that in one complaint, we can have over 500 complainants as a group. In one complaint, we can just have one person. So when we talk about our caseload, our complaint file, in one complaint, like I said, you can have several people, and in another, just one person. So we deal with those as one complaint.
Your office has a very critical role to play, more so in terms of, amending what one might call skirmishes that does or go out in various ministries, departments, and agencies. But how do you handle complaints that comes to your office against government ministers or heads of power states?
Okay, that is a very important question. In fact, that is part of the core of our mandate. When a complaint generally comes, so the law mandates us that we should investigate complaints of maladministration and injustice. So perhaps time will not permit me to tell you what is maladministration.
Yes,
okay. Yes. So maladministration includes one, bias, heavy-handedness, discrimination, failing to even reply to correspondences from members of the public or losing their correspondences, or abuse of office, which is very rampant in our country today, or delay in service delivery, and the list goes on and on. Whilst injustice is any inequitable treatment, whether that treatment is actually imposed by law, but if that treatment causes any grievance, any harm to that person, he or she can come and file a complaint with the Office of the Ombudsman. So when complaints come to us, you can either make the complaint through a representative, or you can come directly. And you can do it in writing if you are educated, or if you are not, you can come to our office, and we have officers who can address that issue, and they take your complaint in writing, and then we read it over to you, and you sign it as your complaint. And when we have taken the complaint, we will ensure that we assess it, whether it falls under our mandate. If it does not fall under our mandate, for any complaint, we do not want it to go unaddressed. So we will refer you to the relevant parties or institution where that complaint does not fall on our mandate, under our mandate. So one of our mandates includes, one of the things that we do not handle are complaints from private institutions or individuals working for private companies. So if such a complaint comes, like we have been having, most of the complaints are labor-related matters, we will refer that matter to the Ministry of Social Welfare, Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And we would now pursue that matter to ensure that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security handles that complainant matters and ensure that he gets the justice that the case demands. And if it falls under our mandate, we'll now, as part of the Ombudsman's powers, we'll send the complaint to the other side. The other party or institution is called a respondent institution or a respondent. So we'll say that we have received this complaint from Mr. XY complaining about the XYZ. Now we want to hear your own side of what actually transpired between you and the party.
Okay.
And this is core because in every complaint, there are three sides to the issue. There is your side, the other person's side, and the truth. And we are the independent arbiter. We do not take sides. All we want to ensure that all parties must be heard. It's a rule of natural justice. All parties must be given the opportunity to be heard. So when we have assessed your complaint, we give the opportunity to the other party, the respondent, to reply, and then we confront you with his reply. If you want to make any addition or subtraction or challenge such a reply, we can give you the opportunity and send it back so that they get the opportunity. And now the law also mandates us to go, first of all, with informal processes to address the grievances or the complaint that was brought to the Office of the Ombudsman. So we are mandated by law to use ADR processes. What are these ADR processes? ADR means alternative dispute resolution processes.
Okay.
So it can be mediation. We put you down, we put the complainant down, we try to mediate, or we do negotiation, you know? So that is, if, for example, you did something wrong in the office and you were liable to be summarily dismissed. I'm just giving you an example. But perhaps due to your commitment to the office or how long you've worked in the office, we can talk to the head of the institution and say, this man has never had any query in this office. Could you please reconsider not dismissing him, but you can terminate his service so that at least he has spent 20 years or 30 years in this institution. At the end of the day, it will go with end of service benefit that will keep him and his family. So that's how our negotiation has been. And then we have conciliation. Conciliation simply making peace between warring parties.
It sounds amazing, the good work that you're doing. But again, over time, we've seen a lot of issues that have ensued amongst, within government agencies. But what was the Ombudsman's office role in, say, Tamba Momo's matter, former Deputy Auditor General at the Audit Service Cell? More so when at some point in time he did mention that when most of what he was supposed to have on a monthly basis we are stripped off from him without due process, he did wrote to the Ombudsman's office, taking into account he believes in your office, but nothing was achieved. What was your role in?
No, well, I beg to differ with the fact that the statement said nothing was achieved. That's not correct. Of course, you are aware about the suspension, now removal of the Auditor General and her deputy. Okay. Yes, from the facts I gathered from the office, the Deputy Auditor General did come to the office and file a complaint. And from the files, I think there was a recommendation that his entitlement be reinstated. I'm sure it was reinstated until he resigned. So the Ombudsman did play a role in ensuring that he got what was entitled to him by law. It was not reinstated. The other day we had him here. He said, yes, you might be correct. At some point when you mentioned that indeed you played your role by, of course, referring to the said institution to ensure his entitlements are given to him. This paints a picture as if the Ombudsman's office is seen more like a toothless bulldog that barks and don't bite. Ombudsman. Well, that has been the accusations leveled against the Office of the Ombudsman. In some aspect, it is correct, and in some aspect, it is not. Why is it correct in certain aspect? Now, the Office of the Ombudsman has direct supervision from the Office of the President. So, in fact, that is why the law empowers us that whenever there is a complaint, after we have conducted a full-fledged investigation, that is where the informal processes are failed, if the complaint is against a minister, we can refer that complaint to the President, who has 3 months with him to act, and if he fails to act, we can send it to the Parliament. But that has never been the situation. That has never occurred. If the complaint is against heads of institution or heads of parastatal, we can send our report and our recommendations to the head of that institution to implement it, and we forward a copy to the board chair and or the supervising minister or ministry to ensure that the recommendations of the Ombudsman are implemented. So, but what we have had of late, or most of the time, is that the office of the Ombudsman actually not only needs political will, it also needs political support. Because from that point, you have to involve the President to ensure that either the minister or heads of parastatals implement the recommendations of the Ombudsman. In fact, that is why we believe that our act has been very outdated due to that. Because in other jurisdictions, for example in Ghana, the Office of the Ombudsman has so much power that the recommendations are implemented as an order of court. So in fact, that's where we are going. Now we are going to amend the act. We are in the process to ensure that the enforcement, there should be enforcement powers with the recommendation of the Office of the Ombudsman. And so there will be other punitive measures against defaulting ministers, heads of institution, parastatals, board chair, and the likes. So we are going to that direction so that the Office of the Ombudsman will be more effective and like you said, has more tooth to bite. And you know, in Creole we can say black man no like sapphire. And so you will notice that when there were increased powers of the Anti-Corruption Commission, most people are afraid of the Anti-Corruption Commission. So that's where the Office of the Ombudsman is headed. Now, I also mentioned that there have been cases where we've been very successful. We've been very successful. We've had situations where the recommendations of the Office of the Ombudsman have been implemented to the letter. People have been reinstated, end of service benefit paid, and the stories of successes goes on and on and on. So this is what I have been saying, including the fact that even with Judiciary, we have people's cases, judgment given on time, we have their matters heard, we have cooperation from Parliament, and so on and so forth. So
as a recommendation, will you prefer the Office of the Ombudsman has powers to prosecute issues that most times are brought to their desk?
No, the Office of the Ombudsman is not a prosecutorial.
I understand.
Yes.
But will you prefer as a recommendation, taking into account, of course, the earlier questions asked? Most times people just believe because you are there to mediate and nothing is being done afterwards, they hardly take those matters, very serious. Even though, yes, there are cases wherein you've reached, reconciliation stages wherein people get what they deserve.
Yes, the Office of the Ombudsman has an administrative outfit to ensure that administration or there is effective public administration. So what we do is more of administration. In administration, there is nothing called prosecution. That is left with the court. Secondly, the Office of the Ombudsman is an alternative to the court.
Right.
That is why when matters are in court, or courts have already decided on matters, when you bring those complaints to us, we will not handle them. That is, in fact, our exception. So we are not an appellate body to the court, we are just an alternative. So that's why we work hard to ensure that people continue to have increased confidence in the Ombudsman's office. And also, we try to make sure that our turnout time, the amount of time we use to deliver quote-unquote justice to aggrieved persons is shorter than what obtains usually in court. So that's why we prefer people come to us and have their matters resolved administratively rather than going to court to get that. However, let me also say this. There have been occasions where the court have used the recommendations of the Ombudsman to give judgment because, of course, at least for now, 25% of my staff are lawyers. And like I said, we are independent arbiter. When the Ombudsman sits during the course of investigation, he sits with the rights, privileges, and powers of the High Court judge. So almost, that's why they don't appoint Ombudsman who is not qualified to sit as a judge of the High Court, a judge of the Superior Court of Judicature, or who has not practiced for over 10 years and above. So at least for those of us who have served on the bench, I did serve as a magistrate, and I think the second Ombudsman of the Republic, Justice Edmund Kawan, also was a judge of the Superior Court of Judicature. So we've had that little experience on the bench. I don't want to call it little. We have had experience on the bench. So we look at matters and complaints independently and impartially, and we follow the law. We do not, like I mentioned, we do not take sides. It does not mean that when you bring a complaint to the Office of the Ombudsman, you're automatically right. That's why we always offer the opportunity for the other party to be heard as natural rule demands.
You've spoken extensively about the power that your institution or your office carries. Now, how are you ensuring that marginalized communities are aware and can access your service? I speak so particularly because of the infrastructural and technological limitations that we have at the moment.
Yes, so the Office of the Ombudsman is part of the justice sector in this country, or justice sector institutions in the country. So there is a justice sector reform strategy, which the Ombudsman is part of. In that strategy, there is a strategic goal to ensure that the Ombudsman's office is at least located in some of the districts as a pilot phase. Because what we have now is that we have offices in the regional headquarter towns, like in Bo, Kenema, Potloko, and Makeni. But you know, with these regional headquarter towns, you have several districts. So my objective or my goal is to ensure that we bring justice to the doorstep of the people, so that people who are in the hard-to-reach areas can access justice. So for now, for instance, how have we been working? We've been collaborating mostly with Legal Aid and the Human Rights Commission, because they are mostly in these districts and villages, because they have more resources, they have more personnel. So because we have, I don't want to call it referral agreement, but we have referral understanding, and very soon we'll be signing MOU. Whenever they have a case that relates to administrative justice, they will refer them to us. And so we have to take over from them. And whenever we also have a case that requires the support or the intervention of Legal Aid Board, we send it to them. Or when it requires the support or intervention of Human Rights Commission, we send it to them. So that's how we have been reaching to the hard-to-reach area of people who are there. And also, when I took up office, I decided to pay a courtesy call to all the district councils and municipal councils in the provinces. So we met with the chiefs, we met with the district council chairman, we met with the mayors, and we tried to...
and what were some of the feedbacks?
Well, some of the feedbacks were good, others were not. In fact, for the good part is that most of the district council chairmen and their staff, or the district, and the mayors and their staff, did not know about our services and about our mandate. So also the staff in those institutions. In fact, even in Freetown, majority of several of the people do not know. I've visited some offices, and I'll tell them to announce to the head of the institution that the Ombudsman is here, and they are saying, who is Ombudsman? What is Ombudsman? And so you have this whole generation of people who do not know what we do, what the Office of the Ombudsman is all about, and the likes.
And how much work have you been putting into that to ensure that people are fully aware of your institution or your office?
So we have been embarking on massive public education and sensitization. In fact, that is part of the secondary aspect of the courtesy call we were paying to various MDAs and institutions. And we'll be very soon having the Ombudsman's Hour. We'll be having radio and television programs to ensure that we continue to educate people. Due to the inadequate funds we usually have, we usually have or hold what they call in-service intake clinics. For the intake clinics, we go to districts and towns to ensure that we receive complaints from people, especially where our offices are not located. So for example, in Bo, you may have 5 districts or 6 districts. In those districts, you have different towns and villages. So we try to go out to the people. And what we discovered during our visit to the regional offices, we discovered that the people are bearing the brunt of traditional administrative injustices, from the paramount chief, from the regent chief, from the local councils, so many things. So some people will complain that from where paramount chief go flag Milan, take out Milan Day in question, and this is the only source of livelihood for these people. So we have several complaints, and by so doing, we'll be working with the Ministry of Local Government to ensure that we bring the attention of the minister to these complaints we've been receiving. And similarly, we try to position the chiefs and the traditional rulers as to their rights. So whenever perhaps they encounter problems or difficulties, or they even have a complaint against the Ministry of Local Government and Community Affairs, they can report them to us and we can take the necessary action. Mind you, we have the first port of call to try to resolve disputes among people and to ensure that public administration works effectively and efficiently.
Ombudsman, one would want to know, is it only complaints that are brought to your notice that you look into, or also complaints that, should I say complaints, or perhaps issues that you think are worthy of being looked into?
Okay, so mostly the understanding of people have been that we have to complain to the Ombudsman. Sure. But the law permits us to get complaints of injustices and maladministration from other sources. It could be from newspapers, it could be from credible newspapers, it could be from radio reports and the likes. You understand? And we can also receive complaints from other persons other than the complainant. So for example, we may receive complaint from somebody who has been detained in the police station for the longest of time without bail, where they violate his or her constitutional right to grant him or herself bail. Or somebody is in detention, let's say he's incarcerated in correctional services, correctional center, where his case is not heard, or his file has gone missing, or a judge or magistrate has refused to sit court in that locality for the longest time. We've been receiving complaints of those nature. So we've received complaints for and on behalf of those people in detention. So yes, we can receive complaints other than from other sources other than from the complainant themselves. Would
you say the Office of Ombudsman failed in the case of our hunt?
Well, like I told you, no, the Office of the Ombudsman never failed in the case of our hunt. I told you one of the exceptions of matters we do not investigate is matters that are already in court or court has already given judgment on them. I told you that categorically clear. Other things we do not investigate are matters that pertains to the presidential exercise of his prerogative of mercy. That is, President always grants amnesty to persons. So you cannot come and complain to us that, Ombudsman, my brother has been behaving very well in prison. In fact, all the prisons officers or correctional officers have been praising him. Yet, President do not grant him pardon. You cannot come and complain that to us. Or presidential grants of award. For example, on April 27, President gives out award, Order of Roquette, Grand Command to other people. You cannot come and complain to us. I have been very instrumental in the development of education or higher education or building schools and this and that. Yet, despite my years of service, no government has ever acknowledged my services to this nation. I deserve an award. They must give me some medal. You cannot complain to us when we investigate. And also, we do not investigate matters that pertains to the DPP's or Attorney General exercise of what we call powers of non-lead prosecutor. That is, at any stage in any criminal proceedings within this country, the Attorney General can stop a criminal proceedings. You cannot come and report to, hey, AG not like me, you don't go involved in me matter. So those are things we don't go. And lastly, we do not involve ourselves with diplomatic relationships between states and countries. That is purely the purview of the president. But however, we have mandates over diplomatic staff. So if a diplomatic staff is in Belgium, UK, and US, as long as it's paid by the government of Sierra Leone from the funds of the government of Sierra Leone, and they have a complaint against their boss or the ambassador, they can file a complaint with the Office of the Ombudsman.
But you cannot also speak on complaint about national issues.
What do you mean national issues?
Like the one we're faced with at the moment, electricity complaints.
Oh, in fact, we have been inundated with complaints from against ETSA and against Guma Valley. The complaints are several. I know that since last year, in fact, I recall I'm in my school group, and we have a lot of ministers there. So we have colleagues, we go through school together. They're not afraid. They speak up their mind. We have people who belong to other political parties. So they were, in fact, they were saying, Ombudsman, what are you doing about the blackout in the country? People, and seriously, when we also went around the country, we received reports from hospitals and other institutions about people of hospitals not having light. Light goes out in the operation theater, people dying. The stories are so much.
People that are sustaining on oxygens and things like that.
Yes, so yes, it's a dire situation. So we've been receiving a lot of complaints about that.
There is obviously the ring fencing around the Office of President, specifically so on 48th of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, Act number 6 of 1991. But again, aside from that ring fence, is it possible for any citizen to bring up a complaint, one which is not legal, one which is not to take the president to court, but to bring up a complaint to the Ombudsman's office? Say, I don't think I'm being treated right by the president in ABCD. I know at some point in time you've mentioned instances wherein say you were supposed to get something, but you never get same from the president, and so you you don't bring up a complaint. But are there instances aside from that ring fencing on 48th?
Interesting question. You've already told us what the Constitution provides. There is no law higher than the Constitution. Even during the president's time in office, you cannot bring criminal charges against the president, not to mention a minor complaint. So, Constitution provides protection of the president. We do not investigate the presidency. So I leave it like that. That's what the law provides.
Koroma spoke of a case, or made reference of a case which has to do with the then Attorney General, Lara Telopez. And you also made mention of some cases that you've handled, but could you please discuss, some of the cases that you say these are like successful cases that you've had, and you've seen that those cases or issues have been resolved. One that you've collaborated with government and you've seen that it has or had like a swift response.
Yes, I told you about the airport case. That is what I meant by swift response. But some cases, irrespective of the fact that we have timelines to end matters, it depends largely also on the cooperation of the parties. So yes, there are so many cases, I do not have them offhand.
How do you handle a situation or a case where they're not responsive or proactive towards the case?
Okay, so where there is a complaint against an institution or an individual, whether it's a minister, whether it's an MD or general manager or director general, and he or she fails or refuses to respond, the law says we can go ahead with our investigation. So it does not matter whether they cooperate or not. But sometimes, since we want to get facts and information from them and how the service, public service and civil service works, sometimes we have to be patient and try to bring the parties together. Like I said, we have informal means of resolving conflict, and later on, where all these mediation and other things fail, then we can go to full-fledged investigation.
Quickly before we take messages on our Facebook page, over time, of recent, we've had allegations which spans from your office, wherein some workers within your office allege that you seem to not only want to be the boss of the institution, but as well the key vote controller in that institution. Will you speak to same?
Oh, okay. I would not want to discuss that in the public, but however, because it touches on my reputation, I have to make it very clear. Okay. The Office of the Ombudsman has always had the Ombudsman as the head. As you know, it's called Office of the Ombudsman.
Sure.
Without the Ombudsman, the office does not exist, or the office will not work. Because to initiate complaint up to the conclusion, the Ombudsman has to sign, has to ratify, has to. So from the days of the Justice Kawan, who publicized the office more, the Ombudsman has always been the vote controller in the office. Has always been. From the days of Justice Kawan up to the days of Meloniku Wilson, up to even 2019, when this current president appointed, what's his name? Leon Jenkins Johnson as ombudsman. Was by some mystery, I think, they said, before I took up office, they said that the vote controller was delegated or was given to an executive secretary. So in the office of the ombudsman, we do not even have, in the act, we do not even have an executive secretary. So this has always been the case. And if you spoke to the last ombudsman, he would tell you that those were the challenges he has already faced. Okay. And as head of institution, you must ensure that there's an accountable way how monies are being spent and used in the office. There's an accountable way in which people come and go. There's an accountable way in which you use the resources of the office. So yes, those things have come up, and of course, as you know, in this country, people take to social media and give up and write all sorts of defamatory comments and statements. As we speak, in fact, I have matters at the police station concerning cyberbullying against a certain staff who wrote all of these things against me. So I made a report to the police station. Okay, we'd
like to hold you there for a minute and, join our Facebook audience to, read out some of the messages that have sent in. Mystic from Drozak says, good to hear from your studio guest. I love his level of perseverance, more so when he has mentioned the challenges he met. I want to wish him well in his administrative duties.
Swissman says, Ombudsman, when Mohamed Kamaimba will return to the judiciary to answer to, I don't think, this one isn't clear.
Okay, Mr. again says, your institution is an important sector which should serve as a pressure group for the ordinary Sierra Leoneans, especially the challenges they are faced with in their places of work. Secondly, your institution needs to do more community engagement.
Anthony M.S. Kosoba says, your office lacks the power to function well because of a lot of political interference. In Australia, Ombudsman's office is like telling someone, wait, let me complain you, to First Lady Fatima Bio in the SLPP.
Arthur Church says, is it true that the Ombudsman took his management team to ACC, calling them criminal suspects because they refused to allow him access to become a vote controller as against the Finance Act?
Continue. And
Swissman says, Ombudsman, prove me right if I'm wrong to say that I think your work is to defend the rights and interests of citizens. But in the case of our aunt, we want to know what have you done at the time when our aunt was in incarceration, and we also want to know the action that you have taken on the misappropriation fund that occurred in the Freetown City Council. Yeah.
Anthony, continue to say, if the law permits you to look into issues you think there is an injustice, what do you do in relation to the poor salary payments and even lack of compensation from many workplaces in Sierra Leone? Foreign companies or business owners pay Sierra Leoneans below the minimum wage. Nothing is being done because you dance to the music of the leadership, or I think brown envelope is an allegation there.
As much as we are encouraging our audiences to be sending in their feedbacks and questions or comments, but we won't be reading out any message that we know sounds like you're attacking someone. Please just bear that in mind. Now, Swissman again says, Ombudsman, can you tell us more about the relationship between you and the Chief Justice, and including judges in the Supreme Court?
Continue. I think I'm having an issue with
Anthony Kosaba, I hope I got it right. If the law permits you to even look into issues, you think there is an injustice? Did you read that?
Yeah, I read that one just now.
Okay, Swissman says, Ombudsman, if the president is interfering in the judiciary, we want to know if the Ombudsman have the rights to caution the president from interfering to the activities of the judiciary.
Arthur Church says, is it true that the Ombudsman took his management team to ACC, calling them criminal suspects because they refused to allow him access to become vote controllers against
Brian Spain, I kindly apologize. I'm not sure I'll be able to read out your messages. Swissman, I will take lastly from Swissman. Ombudsman, who approved the bail of the former President Koroma, and when the former president will return from Nigeria? I think those are some of the questions that are being tagged to you this morning, and respectfully, I would like you to answer to them.
Okay, some questions. I don't think it's. Anyways.
You spoke on few, but maybe you'd like to reiterate.
So elaborate on them.
Yeah.
So let me address the relationship between the Office of the Ombudsman and the Judiciary.
In a minute, please.
Yes. So the relationship between the Office of the Ombudsman and the Judiciary is cordial. Okay? Whilst we do not investigate matters that are in court or court has already given judgment, yet the conduct of court officers, including judges and magistrates and court clerk or the masters and registrars, and if they have a complaint either against, if a member of the public has a complaint against them or the staff has a complaint against any of them, they can bring such complaint to the Office of the Ombudsman, and we can investigate. In fact, my predecessors, as far as I'm concerned, the last Chief Justice, we had a very cordial relationship. We work in unity, and I'm hoping as well that we'll continue to have similar relationship with the current Chief Justice. In fact, I'm planning to meet him on a courtesy call so that we discuss some of these outstanding files or complaints that have been brought against the Judiciary. And believe me, the Judiciary has been cooperating to the best of their abilities.
Okay.
I would say thank you so very much, Ombudsman, for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure having you in our studios. This is a conversation that I believe will continue. Yeah. The fact is, you have an integral role in ensuring that the ordinary man, one which they will call the reasonable man, has justice. But nonetheless, thank you so very much.